Hello everyone, welcome back to my course on enhancing soft skills and personality. This is the third week, fourth unit and lesson number 14. In this unit, I am going to introduce to you one very important concept, and a concept that will be very important in terms of developing your personality, enhancing your personality, developing soft skills, and then trying to change you in a overall sense. It's about channelizing positive emotions. In the last lesson, I talked about negative emotions, particularly about anger. But from this lesson onwards, we will focus on positive emotions. I will tell you why I am spending more time on positive emotions as we start the lesson. But there will be special focus on gaining power from positive thinking. How can you gain power from positive thinking? You gain lot of physical power by going to the gym, by doing lot of exercise, by jogging, by developing your muscle. Can you really develop your brain muscle and then develop lot of power from that by using positive thinking? That is the lesson about. Before I start, as usual, let's take a quick highlight of what I did in the last lesson. In the last lesson, overall I was dealing with managing negative emotions and with specific reference to controlling anger. Anger, I considered that as the most important one because it contains other negative emotions such as jealousy, irritability, rage, all contained in what I am trying to call as anger. Even it leads to grief. Okay, so I was just looking at anger as the most important one in which we need to focus in terms of building your personality that is suitable for corporate as well as personal life. Why did we focus on negative emotions and what are negative emotions? How do you understand negative emotions? Negative emotions stir up bad feelings in you. So, emotion actually is from the French word émouvoir, which meant stirring up. So, negative emotions actually stirred up bad feelings in you such as grief, hate, jealousy, anger, etc. Now, one wonders, why can't I have these feelings? They are coming naturally to me. Yes, of course, they are natural, and then it's also natural to have these emotions in a very meaningful context. For example, a very close friend passed away in an accident and then you attend the funeral ceremony, you are so grieved. His wife and children are grieved. So, you express grief, okay, absolutely no problem. But then you are feeling so grief because your friend actually got the job and then you didn't get the job, you became a loser, and then you keep on indulging in self pity and then you are completely in a state of grief and then you become depressed and you want to commit suicide. Now, this is dangerous. So, emotions in the right manner, even if it is negative, if you express in the right context, it is acceptable in the natural sense. But if it is exceeding the limit and exceeding the context, then it becomes harmful. What happens when it exceeds the limit? It will definitely distort one's thinking. It will make you go into the delusive belief that your emotion is right and justified at that moment. And this delusion corrodes your thinking capacity at all, your ability to discriminate, your ability to see what is right, what is wrong, and to separate the good from the bad. So, that sense of discrimination, that spiritual intelligence, that is lost, and that will lead to complete destruction of the person. However great he or she might be, it will lead to very great destruction and total annihilation of personality combined with humiliation. Quoting from Aristotle, I was trying to convince you that getting angry is easy, but showing it in the right manner is difficult. In the appropriate way, in order to show anger, you need to have lot of patience and practice, and then you need to first learn how to vent out your feelings that would come in a very aggressive manner, and then you can show anger in an assertive manner if required. But my main objective in the previous lesson was to tell you that manage anger, do not let it go out of your control, and do not regret for having acted in an angry manner and you regret for it throughout your life. So, do not do that. Now, the other interesting thing that I was trying to convey in the previous lesson was that if you are right, so most of the times when you are angry, you think that you are right, you come out with that kind of self-righteous feeling. But if you are right, actually you need not get angry at all. You only have to reason it out with the other people, you only have to tell them in plain simple terms, you only have to logically assert your position, just be assertive. You do not have to be aggressive and people will understand that you are right. However, if you are not right, so then you have no right to express your anger. If you know that you are feeling insecure and then you are not right in demanding something, and if you think that by showing your anger and then getting angry with people, you will be able to bully them and then get things from them, then you have no right to express that. It is important to control your anger before people who are weaker, who are vulnerable, who are your subordinates, because those are the people who will not be able to retaliate. And before people who can retaliate, if you show your anger, of course, they will have the power to destroy you. But it is not good to show that before people who are vulnerable. And in the second part of the lesson, we were trying to look at, okay, what happens in case I am not able to control my anger? Yeah, true, sometimes like anger is triggered by external sources, and while you cannot fully control your anger, the anger triggers, you can actually control your responses from inside. So, that is very important. How you would respond to a situation that is causing you angry is very important. Now, wise people, people who have learned from their experience, they learn how to control anger, and as quoted by Einstein, only fools get subsumed by it. It is foolish any time to get angry. What are some quick tips for controlling anger? That is what I discussed towards the concluding part. Postpone your anger at least by 10 minutes. Keep hands folded or keep it inside your pockets. Focus on the consequences when you are going to get angry, and remember, you are 99.99% wrong when you are angry, because your thinking is completely deluded into wrong illusory notions about your own self-righteousness. In terms of physical control, take deep breath, try to smile, use laughter therapy, or follow Lincoln's method, where he used to vent out his anger by writing it on a piece of paper and then wait for some time to cool it off. He goes back and then throws that paper into the dustbin. In terms of physically trying to control it, try to exert you physically just by using a punching bag or playing a game like squash or any game that will vent out your pent up emotions. You can also treat yourself physically just by giving a very nice hot water bath or cool water, depending upon the weather and your mood and your ability to cope up with the temperature. So, that also or going for a swimming, okay, or just taking a walk in a garden. So, these are other things that can actually alleviate you from the negative emotion and then make you feel somewhat positive, and then try to think in a level headed manner. The last important thing I mentioned was that you can use silence very effectively, and especially if the relationships are meaningful, silence itself is enough to express your anger. Okay, the other person would come forward and understand that, so you are silent because you are right in expressing your anger, and you give sufficient time for the other person to come forward and understand and make them realize their mistake, and then they would try to modify, adjust their behavior that irritated you or that made you feel angry. Now, in case things go out of control, what you should do is you should accept your responsibility. You should not blame anybody, you should be responsible. So, any consequences that happened, also you take responsibility, and in case you are the ones who broke the entire situation, feel free to apologize, feel free to say sorry. And in case somebody else did it and then is feeling really bad about it, you forgive the person. As pointed out by Mahatma Gandhi, forgiveness is a strength, it is not considered a weakness. Last but not the least, I suggested that try to use anger in a creative manner. Painters who were very unhappy with the world, they painted the world in such a manner, they disguised their anger, but then they created masterpieces. I mentioned writers like George Orwell and many others who expressed their anger in a very effective manner in the form of novels, in the form of satires, in plays, etc. So, use it creatively, use it to express your writing or any artistic talents. So, that will actually save you from anger, at the same time it will also help the society to change for the better. I concluded by pointing out some benefits in terms of controlling anger. Once you are able to control your anger, you will live a very healthy, happy and peaceful life. You will become emotionally stable, your emotional intelligence will be at the peak, because the crux of your emotional intelligence is your ability to control anger, the most strongest feelings. If you are able to control it, you become highly dependable, you become a resourceful person, and people gravitate towards you, people feel comfortable staying with you, people would like to work with you, people know that you will never get angry and you will never humiliate them, you will never let them down, and then you are very strong and emotionally dependable, and you can help them in any emotionally vulnerable situations. And know what, you will also start inspiring others, and you will become self-confident and positive in your outlook. Now, positivity, that is the thrust of this lesson. And you may ask, there is so much to do in terms of negative thinking, and why you are going for positive thinking. Let us look at positive thinking from a story. Many of you have appreciated the way I conduct these lessons, give lectures on the videos by illustrating a point using stories. In the previous course also, you liked many of the stories that were told. I hope you like this story and you understand the importance of this story in terms of positive thinking. It is about two men. Both men, they were suffering from terminal illness, in the sense they have just come to the hospital to spend their last time. There are nobody for them and they are just there to die. They have occupied the same hospital room. One man was allowed to sit up in his bed for an hour each afternoon to help drain the fluid from his lungs. So, otherwise both of these people are weak and all the time they are bedridden and they are lying on the bed. Now, this person's bed was next to the room's only window. The other man had to spend all his time flat on his back, but they talked for hours because there was nothing else to do. They talked to each other, they were talking about their love life, they were talking about their family, they were talking about their childhood days, they were talking about the time they spent in army, they talked about their business, everything, they talked for hours. Every afternoon, when the man in the bed by the window could sit up, pass time by describing to his roommate all the things he could see outside the window. So, it is the afternoon time when he is just sitting up, he looks outside the window and describes the scenery that is outside. In contrast to the dull, monotonous hospital situation that is haunting them inside. Now, his roommate began to live for those 1 hour periods where his world would be broadened and enlivened by all the activity and color of the world outside. Remember, both of them are just counting their last few days and they are dying. The man who is listening to the story otherwise was very frustrated, and then he was living a very hopeless kind of life. But whenever he listened to what this person was narrating from the outside world, so that made him gain some hope. He became optimistic. The outside world that was described by him was very beautiful and very positive and very optimistic. What did the man describe? The man described of a beautiful park with a lovely lake. Ducks and swans played on the water, while children sailed their model boats. Young lovers walked arm in arm amidst flowers of every color, and a fine view of the city skyline could be seen in the distance. As the man by the window described all this in exquisite detail, the man on the other side of the room would close his eyes and imagine the picturesque scene. So, whenever he describes, the other man was visualizing. Now, days and weeks passed and they were slowly reaching their last few days. One morning, the day nurse arrived to bring water for their baths, only to find the lifeless body of the man by the window, who had died peacefully in his sleep. She was saddened and called the hospital attendants to take the body away. As soon as it seemed appropriate, the other man asked if he could be moved next to the window, because he was longing to see what is there outside this window, and there was only one window and he could not ask before because the other person was already occupying that bed. Now, the nurse was happy to make the switch, and after making sure he was comfortable, she left him alone. Slowly, painfully, he propped himself upon one elbow to take his first look at the real world outside. He is trying to slowly turn to look out the window beside the bed. And what was there outside? That was so beautifully described by the other man who died just now. The window, it faced a blank wall. There was nothing. The wall was just empty. It was so close to the window, you cannot see anything other than this wall. It was just blank and empty. The other man was just shattered, was taken aback. So he asked the nurse what could have compelled his deceased roommate, who had described such wonderful things outside this window. The nurse responded that the man was blind and could not even see the wall. This again very highly ironic. The man could not even see the wall, he was just blind. She said, perhaps he just wanted to encourage you. So the man was blind, his world is already dark, but he knew that there is another man who is frustrated and hopeless, and he wanted to give him some hope. He wanted to tell him the beautiful things that life can offer him. So he instilled a lot of hope in this person just by describing a very beautiful scenery outside the world which was not there at all. What is the moral of the story? Some morals that we can derive from this story. One, there is tremendous happiness in making others happy despite our own situations. So the person was blind, but despite the fact he was blind, he was able to picturize a beautiful world that made the other person live happily. The other moral, shared grief is half the sorrow, but happiness when shared is doubled. So to share your happiness, double it. But if you want to reduce your sorrow, so then again you share it. The next moral, if you want to feel rich, just count all the things you have that money can't buy. So count all the things that money can't buy, and the more you have, the more you can consider yourself rich. The other moral, today is a gift, that's why it's called the present. So don't think about or worry about tomorrow, live in the present. The other moral that I derived from this story is that genuine happiness lies in compassion. Genuine happiness lies in feeling for somebody else and trying to mitigate the pain of somebody, trying to alleviate the pain of somebody, and in that compassion lies our genuine happiness. Negative thinking in this context makes you refuse to accept sorrow and live a miserable life. What would have happened if the man on the other side was given a chance to sit next to the window from day one? He would have glanced at the empty wall and looked at the blankness of the world outside, and he could have died even much before this person. However, positive thinking makes you accept your sorrow and makes you live a happy, healthy, satisfied, fulfilling and meaningful life. Now, why positive thinking? I raised the question at the beginning, why not I spend 2-3 lessons on negative thinking, and why I have just come to positive thinking and spent only one lesson on negative thinking. In my opinion, there is enough of negativity already in the world. Look around you. The people around us are so negative. They don't want us to do anything positive. Look at the media that has surrounded us in the form of TV, newspaper, internet. They are only perpetuating this negativeness. Look at the newspaper, watch the news. They are all telling things which are completely negative and gloomy. Every time you see a murder, a suicide, a rape, something about a serial killer or corruption, betrayals. So everywhere you see negativity around you, but then there is positive thinking, and the aim of the course is to share positivity and energize participants also. So since the aim of the course is to share positivity and energize the participants, the main focus throughout this course is on positive thinking, and we are exclusively going to spend some time in this and the next couple of lectures on positive thinking. How is it related to success? Positive thinking and success go hand in hand. Success, you know, begets success. Your success in one thing, success just starts chasing you and then it comes to you. And failure with a negative attitude attracts more failure. Remember, in the lesson on growth mindset, we understood that failure is important to develop your growth mindset. But to have that kind of attitude, you need a positive attitude. But if you have a negative attitude, then your failure will attract only more failure. Positive mental attitude, or call it PMA, and negative mental attitude, call it NMA. So, positive mental attitude attracts opportunities for success, while negative mental attitude repels those opportunities. PMA has the will to find a way. NMA refuses to take the first step even if the way is clear. In this context, look at the quotation from Henry Ford, who says, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right." So, whether you think positively that you can do that, you can achieve that, you can really be happy, or you think negatively that you can't do it, you can't achieve it, you will always remain unhappy, he says that in both cases you are right. It depends on what attitude you want to carry it out, whether negative or positive, and accordingly you determine the consequences of your life. Overall, negative thinking deprives you of self-development and keeps you in perennial vacuity. So, when you are negatively thinking about you and your surroundings, it will not let you actualize yourself. The self-actualization that Maslow and others talk about, it will not make you reach your full potential. Forever you will try to fill up a vacuum, and that vacuum will be remaining forever. There is a void instead of developing yourself. A very interesting quote from Bruce Lee so the martial arts champion. So, he introspects and writes in one of his letters that where some people have a self, most people have a void. By self, he means the one that you have developed in a very positive sense about yourself. Most people have a void because they are too busy in wasting their vital creative energy to project themselves as this or that, dedicating their lives to actualizing a concept of what they should be like rather than actualizing their potentiality as a human being. So, most of the negative thinking tries to build this void in terms of building a kind of image that will fulfill others' negativity instead of focusing on oneself and actualizing one's own potentiality as a fully realized human being. Now, as a concluding thought, just believe in positivity, because to quote from Leslie Cassidy, when you start to believe in miracles, you begin to see miracles all around you. This is just the beginning of miracles in your life, and start believing that. For further reading, if you want to read the full form of the story that I discussed with you, the story of two patients, there are so many versions available on the internet, but the one that I liked and from which I have derived the morals also are from this Words for Mind .blogspot.in, which you can refer to. And there are 3 must read books, whether you are going to read it now or you are going to read it later. But this is a very valuable one for your book collection for developing your personality. One is from Napoleon Hill and William Clement Stone, Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude, and the other one just by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And the third and the most popular of all, Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking. I will get back to you in the next one with more suggestions from these books. Until then, think positive and then work out miracles in your life. Happy staying with positivity. Thank you for watching this video.